Yeah, I remember to record. Good morning, everyone. That'll get me brownie points with Laura, our head of marketing. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TfGM update. We do these fairly regularly, but we're trying to do them more regularly. We're joined by Mark Thomas and Emma Flynn from TfGM, hopefully together on one screen, as you can see. So they will do a partnership job with their presentation. We are recording this, as you just heard, so we will be pushing this out afterwards. Unlike our intelligence briefings, please feel free, and indeed, we would encourage you to share with colleagues and so on. We are going to intend to do a few more of these during the year, probably every couple of months, to see how it goes, but to just make sure that people are up to date with the sort of the thing that's happening over the next 6-12 months rather than the things that are happening in 15-20 years time, which obviously is what we see a lot of documents about. So I don't think there's any more housekeeping. I don't need to tell you where the fire exits are or anything else. So you are all on mute as you come in, so please stay on mute. If you've got any questions, please just put them in the chat and I can ask the guys afterwards. If you do have some questions after you've seen the recording or after colleagues have seen the recording, just drop me or one of my colleagues at CityCo a line and we will ask TfGM and get back to you with hopefully an answer or we'll cover that next time, which happens sometimes as well. Definitely. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Vaughan. Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Thomas. I'm the Strategic Lead for Business Engagement at Transport for Greater Manchester.
And hi, everyone. Emma Flynn, Head of Partnerships, Engagement and Inclusion at TfGM. Yeah, as Vaughan said, thanks very much for joining us today. Great to have you all. And I'm going to run through a few updates of covering some of the slightly longer term things, thinking about the next couple of years, but stopping at that. And then we've got some sort of shorter term things to pick up on as well, just to support your planning and current opportunities and live issues. So we'll make a start. Mark's going to share the screen. Hopefully that'll work for everyone.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I will share it now and hope that it is working. How is that, Vaughan? Is it? Can we see it? Is that okay? Okay.
All good, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. All right. So just very quickly, a bit of a recap on who we are and how we fit in, just for context. So we, from a TfGM perspective, we are responsible for delivering GM's transport strategy and commitments. So that's working with the Mayor, the 10 GM local authorities. We're working collectively to develop and deliver the B network. So that's Greater Manchester's integrated transport network. And with a real focus on making that work and making it as effective as it can be, as inclusive, as accessible, as affordable, reliable, etc., for the people and places of Greater Manchester. Just to sort of add a bit to that, when we're talking about an integrated transport network, that's very much about bringing together all of the different modes, so from bus, tram, active travel, and ultimately local rail service as well, into one system. And the benefit of that is it supports integrated ticketing, integrated information, so we can talk about people's journeys in the round rather than having to sort of break that down into specifics. And really it's about making it seamless and a much better experience for everyone. And that's often referred to as the sort of London style transport system, so what you'd experience travelling in and around the capital, and because that's what they've always had and have been able to capitalise on as a result. And ultimately, by moving towards that integrated system and by bringing all of those different modes together, it's about supporting Greater Manchester's economy, delivering more jobs, supporting business, supporting homes and home building, and creating a network which has sort of inclusion and accessibility at the heart as well. So thinking about the access and sort of thinking about the next couple of years, buses are the sort of really key part of creating that integrated network. So we are moving towards a franchise network over the next few years, which is something we'll come on to in a little bit more detail later on. And that's a real opportunity by moving to franchising and transforming the bus system through that to it's a fundamental shift in moving us towards that fully integrated system. I guess one thing to mention in the context of that is that by having that joined up system, what we're aiming to do alongside that is encourage more use of public transport and active travel alongside, but public transport creates revenue generation, which supports future investment in public transport and sustains the network we've got. It's important that that continues to grow, not just from the point of view of consideration of transport decarbonisation and working towards net zero collectively, but also to have the revenue there to support the system. And we're growing that from a different baseline. So the baseline we've got now with public transport journeys is has come out of the pandemic and reflects changing behaviours. So I guess particularly things like more home working for those who can. So that's kind of where we are, and creating that sustainable network is about thinking about how we encourage more people to use public transport alongside providing the options to do that. So.
An element of the development of the B network and also kind of encouraging more people to use it is something that I've been kind of asked to support on at TfGM, which is engaging with businesses very much like yourselves will be a critical part of how the network develops in future. So we as an organisation, we need to be a lot more responsive to the needs and demands of the business community in Greater Manchester. And that includes every part of Greater Manchester. You know, there are 110,000 businesses across the city region, a thriving centre, and the B network needs to kind of look at how that's developing and what needs to change in order to support the growth and changing patterns that we might see. And so what are we doing? We're trying to build relationships across the city region, and thank you so much to you, to CityCo, to Vaughan for being part of that, to make sure that a business voice is at the heart of designing and delivering the B network. It will be something that we have control over that we may not have done, well, we certainly didn't in the past, and therefore it will enable us to take into account the views of businesses far much more than we have done kind of hitherto, just because we didn't, for example, like with bus franchising, have control over the operation of the network. That engagement, we would love to work with businesses to enable growth in patronage on public transport. It needs to be better and serve businesses in a better way, but we know what would love for that to enable more people to use it as well, like Emma said, the kind of London model where you just don't think about it and it works. And that will also help us to reach carbon neutrality goals as well, which are really kind of ambitious in Greater Manchester, and will mean more people getting out of cars and onto public transport and active travel over the coming years. And all of that kind of adds up to better connectivity, better access to labour force, and more affordable routes to work, which we hope will support sustainable economic growth across the city region. One of the few things that we've done since kind of starting, recognising that sometimes it can be a bit of a confusing route into TfGM for a business who has probably many questions about what's the best value ticket deals for them, or how do they encourage their workforce to use public transport, and a whole plethora of questions. So we recognised that, brought it all together in one place, which we call the business portal. The link's there at the top of the page, and it's on our LinkedIn channels and things. And thank you again to CityCo for sharing a recent update to that. So there's more information, simplified, a bit more user-friendly on there at the moment. I encourage you to check it out, and if there isn't anything on there, let us know. that you're interested in, and we're always looking to make it better. So that's just one element of the engagement that we do. That's a kind of digital shop window, I suppose, for businesses in Greater Manchester. There's quite a lot of information on there, one of which is the deals that are available to businesses. So we tried to kind of take a simplified look at the ticketing and fares that are there, but also there's a dedicated banner on that business portal that outlines that there are things like bespoke deals for businesses who perhaps want to bulk buy for their colleagues, and things like that on there, which teams at TfGM will be happy to run you through. And then kind of moving on from the specific kind of business focused element of the B network, we know hopefully it's always helpful to provide a bit of a network update in the kind of immediate term for CityCo members. We'll keep doing this on a regular basis, like Vaughan says as well. And this is kind of, there's a whole load of information on here. I won't run through it all because I think everyone will probably leave. But essentially, you can see kind of some of the figures on there. The table to the right here is rail specifically, and I don't need to tell anybody, I don't think, how challenging it's been with the level of disruption. In particular, you can see Transpennine Express down here, which has really been quite shocking with its level of cancellations, which is impacting us all, impacting booking events, arranging meetings, you know, all those kind of things. And hopefully just to reassure in some ways that certainly we're always trying to make that better and raise this with government at every level. On the public transport network across Greater Manchester, the kind of trend is that patronage has been returning, albeit relatively slowly. Travel patterns have changed, which is, I'm sure, is evident in your businesses as well. We see a lot kind of more leisure trips Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but kind of working patterns, particularly into the centre, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at those peak times are kind of have been for the past couple of months busier than pre-pandemic in places, particularly on Metrolink. However, across Metrolink as a whole, kind of trips are down 20-25%, which does kind of create challenges for revenue and such like. And then bus, since the lower bus fares were introduced, we think that's kind of given it a bit of a fillip, and they're kind of slowly returning as well. And cycling, active travel, the numbers have been quite good, which started during the pandemic and has largely kind of continued since. And there'll be kind of campaigns from us this year to keep kind of driving up that really good thing. And this is just a kind of different way to cut the data, so we can kind of see it across the bottom there, with bus journeys making that creep back up. Metrolink the same. Rail, you can see the kind of significant dip, and kind of not really returning, and that's kind of everything that we talked about. Highways largely back up to pre-pandemic, although a couple of percentage down. And cycle journeys, yeah, you can see the trend and the returning there as well, but still a way to go. And then other kind of immediate other immediate things that we kind of thought would be helpful. We've kind of taken a look ahead this month and next, kind of what's happening across the centre, things you've known about kind of a week or so ago, the rail strikes, and then looking a bit further ahead. In particular, hopefully it's helpful to flag the Metrolink works, which will be happening this month. So there'll be Rochdale Line works 11th, 12th, so we're in a couple of days' time. Bury Line works 18th to 19th, and Rochdale Line works again on the 20th of February, which will impact operations in the centre. And looking forward to March as well. Kind of hot off the press on Metrolink works. We had an update yesterday of the kind of forthcoming works in March. Really happy to send these through in email form in case it's helpful to circulate as well. So we have 5th of March Rochdale Line, and 11th and 12th of March city centre works, which will impact operations again in the centre. Rochdale Line on the 13th, and then 26th of March kind of across the network, and in particular the Rochdale Line. So there are some kind of fairly significant works happening next month on Metrolink.
Yeah, it would be good to include that, so that we can include that, as I said, in the monthly intelligence update, so we just can actually do some of the, this is the good stuff, all those events and things that are going to be coming in, hopefully doing good things for business, but then some of the things that actually may be issues as well, or that have to be managed around. So it'd be great to get that on a regular basis.
Definitely. Thanks, Bon. Okay.
Cool. So hopefully some of you have seen Get On Board out and about on the transport network, city centre and beyond. So that is our integrated campaign. So I don't know if someone's off mute, possibly.
Got a bit of background noise.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's better. Thank you. And apologies for our interruption earlier as well. The joys of meeting rooms. So yeah, Get On Board's our integrated campaign that is all about promoting sustainable travel across Greater Manchester. And that includes some of the newer developments in terms of supporting affordable fares. So Mark touched on the new capped bus fares that came in last year, so autumn last year, that mean that there's a maximum £2 adult single fare and £5 all-day fare across all Greater Manchester buses. So that is something that was a key tenet of moving forward with bus franchising, that capped fares and consistent fares across all operators. And that we were able to bring that in sort of a year ahead of franchising through some additional funding and a commitment from operators to support that, which is really positive. And as Mark said, we started to see that seeming to have an impact on the network and numbers of journeys. And alongside that, there's been a cap put in place around weekly tickets as well. So that's to mitigate the impact of inflationary uplifts from operators and support that, keeping it at that lower level. And then also, I guess, thinking about Metrolink and more flexible options on there. Sorry, yeah, with the clipper. So that, for those of you who don't know, that's a ticket which provides 10 one-day travel cards for the price of 9 and can be used over a 56-day period. So again, just sort of what the options are that maybe reflect some of the different behaviours we're seeing and provide more flexibility day to day for people using the network. And that will continue to be a focus for us. I touched on bus franchising earlier, so I guess just to add a couple of the specifics to that. So there is a sort of broadly 3-year period, 2 to 3 years, that takes us through to a fully franchised network. And that's been done in 3 tranches. And the reason for that is to help minimise any disruption and ensure a managed transition. So rather than trying to do it all sort of from day one across the whole of Greater Manchester, if you think about the clock face of Greater Manchester, it's been split into 3, and we move round the clock face over these 3 periods. So that begins towards north across Wigan, Bolton, Bury, and then into areas of Manchester, Salford from September this year. So as of the 24th of September, the first franchise bus services will be running, and you'll start to see the quite distinctive B network branding across buses in those areas, and that those will run alongside the unregulated network in the other areas. Then in 6 months' time, 7 months in March, that then picks up Bury, Rochdale and Oldham, and then finally coming round to the south of the city centre through Stockport, Trafford, Tameside, South Manchester, and those final bits of Salford from January 2025. So come January 2025, the whole bus network will be that franchise network, will be running as part of the B network.
It will be very yellow.
And very yellow, yes, yeah. And that will be the, what we sort of know now as Metrolink and the tram system. That's going to be part of the B network, obviously then running alongside. So you'll be familiar with cycle hire as a further kind of option within that B network integrated system. And as I touched on earlier, this is all around putting that in place to benefit customers ultimately, and through that the wider GM communities, including businesses. And we recognise that over that transition period there will be a bit of a confusing picture, and what that means in terms of people's individual journeys, the services they take, where journeys sort of cross over those tranches, or even cross over the boundary of Greater Manchester. But we'll be putting a lot of focus on helping to ensure there's a really clear picture for people, and to put steps in place to help navigate and understand the system during that period.
Yeah, it's worth touching briefly on introducing franchising means that kind of customer views will be a kind of significant factor in payment to operators. So the kind of a customer opinion of how the network is going and the service that they experience will have a direct impact on whether operators are paid or not, which is the first time we've been able to do this. And that will have, we are kind of looking to that to have kind of significant impact and a very kind of positive one on how the network runs and how responsive it is to customers and businesses. Just moving on briefly from bus franchising, I thought it worth kind of touching upon some campaigns that we're running at the moment, and that might be relevant to people on this call. And one of those is the commuter campaign, and this started on the 16th of January and runs until mid next month, kind of mid-March. And it's on across kind of a whole host of channels, social channels, and kind of paid media, and you'll see it on Metrolink stops and things as well. But the aim of this is at the kind of key behaviour change bit of the year, when people are going back to work, if they're kind of tempted to hop into the car rather than the tram, the commuter campaign is a way to try and help that decision to kind of go more towards the tram. And so part of it is raising awareness of kind of simple things like what the options are for tickets and timing and such like. So that's running at the moment. If you think that would be of interest to your colleagues, do let us know. My kind of contact details are on these slides, and happy to share them after, and we can always share a bit of information kind of on that basis. And then a second one, which you may be aware of or may not, it's relatively recent, is that we've just kind of announced minute bundles with an attached discount for cycle hiring. So really kind of relevant across the city centre. And as it says there, you can buy between £5 and £40 worth of minutes in advance and pay 5p a minute to ride, which is a discount on the kind of normal pricing structure. That's been really, really popular in the kind of few weeks since it's launched, so we're absolutely delighted. And if it's of interest, please do use it. And again, happy to send any information or any kind of materials that would be useful if you want to share that too. So moving on from the campaigns onto a couple of broader updates, which I hope will be useful. One being Clean Air Plan and the second being on HS2.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so just on Clean Air Plan, you may be aware that Greater Manchester leaders paused the implementation of the citywide Category C charging clean air zone pretty much a year ago, this time last year. And that was driven through the recognition that the significant vehicle chain supply issues, particularly for vans, sort of coming out of the pandemic, and also cost of living increases, meant that the plan as it had been developed at that time was unworkable. It wasn't going to get the move to compliant vehicles needed in order to address the illegal levels of nitrogen dioxide. And the focus then was around mitigating that financial hardship for people affected across Greater Manchester. So from that point and through government dialogue, Greater Manchester submitted its case for an investment-led, non-charging clean air plan to government in July last year. And since that time, there's been a sort of a wait on feedback from government around that. But in the meantime, the development of the supporting policy around that investment-led non-charging approach has progressed through, and that includes some targeted work, including with business rep orgs to feed into that and some of the considerations. And we were sort of anticipating moving forward to consultation on a set of proposals sort of early this year. However, that was always dependent on feedback from government. We did, there was a response from government late last month, so in January, and the request was to provide some additional evidence that will enable them to further consider the GM position and the proposed approach around that investment-led non-charging plan. And you may have seen some of this picked up in the media over the last week or so, off the back of the sort of, I guess, 1 year on from the initial pause. So Greater Manchester leaders have responded to that. The first set of evidence requested is being brought together, and then have set out that the next set of evidence, which requires a lot more detailed modelling, will follow later in the year. So that work's continuing. The GM position is still very much around moving forward with investment-led non-charging, and as the further evidence is submitted to government, the next steps will become clearer, including the timescales for future public consultation. So once that further feedback has been received later in the year, then the next steps will be able to be set out around consultation timescales. But Greater Manchester has always been very clear that it will continue to consult to understand the sort of the impacts and the feedback around proposals going forwards.
Thanks, Emma. Okay, and very briefly, I was hoping to pick up on HS2 predominantly because of its city centre impact. It may seem a long way off, but one of the stages that will have a bearing on kind of what actually happens is happening now. So there's a bill in Parliament that's about to go through a committee of MPs, and this bill looks at the route from Birmingham Manchester, including things like whether the proposals at the moment for a station overground in Manchester are suitable. So there's an opportunity over the next kind of few months to make our voice as a city region, but also as businesses, if you're kind of concerned about this or have a particular view, whether it will impact you or not, to make representations and try and change the current position, which is for an overground station in Manchester, which the city argues would be unsuitable, A, for the impact on the city centre, and B, for its kind of long-term prospects for supporting growth across the north, i.e. once it's built, it will already be at capacity. So there's a real opportunity at the moment to make voices heard. We've had some advice from King's Council that the voice of you know, I would hope that this was obvious, but the voice of business is absolutely crucial in any kind of potential changes that might be able to happen to how HS2 looks in future. So if you kind of feel strongly about this and want to make your voice heard, we'd really kind of urge you to do so. And if you are unsure how to, we can always kind of help to clarify that. But I think there'll probably be a lot more kind of noise about this over the next kind of month or two as the select committee process gets underway and this comes under a spotlight once again. But that's HS2. And briefly, just before I close, just because I'm conscious that it's probably of interest to many members, there's ongoing work along Deansgate in the centre, and I asked colleagues for an update on that at the moment. The United Utilities are currently carrying out the work that you see on site. Once that is finished, I think Manchester City Council will then be on site in order to install kind of better active travel facilities to make a more kind of pleasant and accessible place. However, appreciate that does mean that there's disruption from United Utilities and then likely disruption from Manchester City Council as well. But what we can do, Vaughan and for everybody on the call, is just keep you as updated as possible. And I know some kind of operational colleagues are now linked in with CityCo in order to make that happen a bit more regularly. So I hope that's a wee helpful final update. But that's everything from us for the moment. Really happy to take any questions or not, as the case may be. But yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much. On that, on the HS2 issue, is there a form letter or information that should be used, particularly where it would go if businesses were minded to do so? I mean, we'd certainly be happy to talk to the boards of both CityCo and the bid, I mean, which between them represent about 700, 800 businesses to contribute to that. I know I'm having a conversation with Pro Manchester and the Chamber in a couple of weeks about working more together in terms of some of the transport issues like that. But it would be really useful if we just got some information about actually what form the letters need to be in, who they need to go to, those sort of things. So if you can get those to me, we can have a conversation with big players, small players, medium-sized players, and get some responses. Seems really very strange, to be honest.
Yes, really happy to, Vaughan. And yes, we do know those things. Happily, kind of we'll send them over. It's the rail minister and the chair of the committee and things. But happy to kind of let you know outside this call on kind of what that might look like. And you know, some of the advice was if the great thing from businesses is that they speak their own mind, and so the last thing that is helpful is a pro forma letter from everybody that looks the same type thing. So yeah, I'm really happy to pick that up after this call.
That's cool. thank you all for coming. As I said, we are recording, so we will send out a link either later today or tomorrow for this, if you would like to share with colleagues. If there are any questions resulting, please drop me a line, or Mark's contacts are on the last slide as well. So if you've got a recording, you should be able to speak to him directly. Just as a reminder for anyone, our normal mid-month intelligence briefing, which is usually on Wednesday, is next week on Thursday morning. So it's on the 16th. But a fairly large number of people are already signed up. So, and Mark's just put up that link there as well. So thank you all for coming. We'll be doing another one of these in a couple of months. But if there are any questions in the meantime, please do drop us a line and get in contact. Thank you to Mark and Emma. And I will speak to you all soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.